It's a special edition of the Brett Allan Show, a pop culture podcast, and we are talking Reacher on Amazon Prime, February 4th. We have the amazingly talented Willa Fitzgerald. Thank you so much for your time and hanging out with us today.
Thank you for having me.
This is so exciting. I tell you what, I had the opportunity to watch this, and as everybody else will later down the road, one of the bonuses of doing this is fantastic, and you do an amazing job. Well, how exciting is it to be a part of such an iconic project, an iconic story, an iconic universe? I mean, everything about it is just, it has to be exciting, I would imagine.
Yes. I mean, it's very exciting. It's a great script. And I think that was kind of what drew us all to it. It's such a wonderful adaptation of Lee Child's book.
Yes. I mean, the books are fantastic. And then we had the movies. This one on Amazon Prime, I feel like adds a little bit more, or a lot more texture, a lot more background, sort of lets the fans in a little bit more about each character, your iconic role. What was your experience like working on this? Had you seen the other films before? Had you read the books? What was sort of your introduction to the universe of Reacher?
Yeah, I actually hadn't seen the films and I had not read the books, but I read the script when it was sent to me, and I was immediately pulled into the world that Nick creates in that pilot episode, and was really drawn to the people of Margrave, the character of Reacher, and obviously Roscoe. I just thought Roscoe was such a cool character kind of from the jump. And you know, that's not always how a pilot works. Sometimes the pilot is kind of feeling out a character. You don't really get a super strong sense. But from that first scene that I read with Roscoe in it, I was like, oh, I see this person. I know who she is. I love her. And I want to know more.
Yeah, I love that. That's always a good sign, I think, when you get into something like that and connect with a character immediately. And I said this in other interviews with your cast. This will definitely provide fan service for people who have seen the movies, who have read the books, but also introduce them into a completely different world.
Yeah.
From your perspective, Willa, what do you hope people take away from this? Do you have an expectation? I mean, obviously, we want to be entertained. We're in a time right now where entertainment is super important, but are there any takeaways that you have as a storyteller from this particular project that you would like fans or people just in general when they have the opportunity to watch it?
That's a really good, interesting question, because I think that obviously, I think people will love watching the show because it is fun. It is captivating. It is a show that you want to keep watching. I think that there's also kind of a real inherent goodness in the show. And I think that there's something about Nick Santora, our showrunner's worldview, and also Lee Child's worldview that is really positive, actually, which is not necessarily what you would think from an action, you know, like male action hero. But I think Reacher is a very good-hearted person. Allan himself is an extremely good-hearted person. And I think that energy is something that is so translates to the show. And I think that there's something there that we can all take away from the show.
Yeah, I think so. Interesting that you mentioned that, because oftentimes with action films, you know, it's one-sided heavies. There's sort of just kind of one myopic direction where things are heading, which isn't necessarily bad. But I feel like when you have an opportunity to tell this story in a anthology type series where we're getting multiple episodes, I mean, it's clearly shot like a nice 2.5 hour film, but you are breaking these pieces up. It's great. One last question. You've been a part of so many amazing projects and a lot of different things, but I think our listeners always find it interesting. What interested you in becoming a storyteller, Willa? What was it that made you go, this is something that I want to do and to pursue as a full-time career, basically?
That's a really big question, and I'm going to try to answer it as succinctly as possible.
Sure.
I grew up as an only child, and I think that telling myself stories was just a huge part of my growing up. And it was something that I very innately loved, even before I ever thought of that as being a career possibility. And I think that as I went through school, it was something that I also loved to do as an extracurricular. And then I think that it was when I first started to realize the impact that actually telling stories has on other people, that it became something that was more vocational and less of something that was just an activity that I enjoyed doing. Sure. And I think that as an actor, I also get a lot of, I also find a lot of personal growth from exploring other characters, finding empathy for other characters who may or may not be likable at a first glance. And it's something that I find personally has a lot of value to my own life.
I love it. Well, this is fantastic. We are talking Reacher, dropping on Amazon Prime February 4th. Do not miss it. I promise you this will satisfy you as a fan of just entertainment in general, but also with the stories. Willa, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an honor chatting with you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.